Hi players, bonjour from Paris, my name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Game. Today I'm going to review Rurik Dawn of Kiev. Ready to see how this game really goes? Let the easy review begin. Rurik Dawn of Kiev is a 1 to 4 player game, so yes, there is a solo mode, where the different players are going to compete between themselves who will be the leader that will inherit Vladimir the Great. With the setup, players will choose up to 3 territories to put their soldiers and another territory to put their unique leader. In this game we're going to have 4 turns, and in each turn we're going to have 3 different phases. The first phase is the strategy phase, where the different players will put on the strategy board their different advisors. The advisors are numbered between 1 and 5, and the higher the number, the stronger the advisor. But later on, when we'll go to the action phase, the lower the number, the more quickly he will play. Obviously, the higher actions that we can see on the first row will be more strong than the ones that are coming later. And here comes the cool mechanism of the auction. So if, for example, the yellow player has put his advisor right over here, later, if I would like to put another advisor on the same place and I would like to have the better action, I will need to put a stronger advisor, and then I will be able to push the other advisor down. Or I will be able to use a weaker advisor, but I will need to, for example, pay some coins, and that means that we'll be able to bribe in order to surpass the other advisor and still play before them. After the different players have put all their advisors, we're going to go to the next phase, which will be the action phase, and then the players will take turns in order to resolve the different actions. Starting, of course, with the advisor with the lowest number. The different actions that we have here are muster, and that means basically just recruit more soldiers to the different territories. We're going to have move, where we will be able to move different units on the map. Attack, that will give us attack points in order to have combat either with the rebels or the other factions, the other leaders. We're going to have tax, where we'll be able to take the different resources from the different regions. Build, which obviously will allow us to build the different buildings, and here we'll see that we have 3 types of buildings. We're going to have the market, and when we have a market in a specific territory, when we will tax this territory, we'll be able to have one more of that resource or to take one more coin from the supply. After that, we're having a church, where we will be able to sort of convert the rebels or the other factions to our side, and that means just replace one soldier of the enemy with one soldier of ours. And the last action is something that is called scheme, and that means that we'll be able to take some of these scheme cards that will allow us later to take bonus actions, like taking more coins, doing more of the different actions that we saw before. Because every time that we're doing an action, a main action with one of our advisors, we'll be able to take before and or after that main action a bonus action. So that means playing one of these scheme cards, maybe completing one of the deed cards that we have over here, that are basically some demands, some quests, as we can say. So we complete something and then we're going to receive some sort of bonus. And also we'll be able to convert some of the goods that we have with these good tokens. That means that we're going to spend some resources in order to have different bonus action, like over here with the muster or over here with the build. Also, the different leaders are having different abilities, so this is something that will contribute a little bit to the asymmetrical aspect of the game, but we'll see it a little bit later in the review. The third phase is the claim phase, where we'll be able to move our different tokens on the claim board. So in this part of this phase, we're going to see how many territories we control, how many buildings we have in different adjacent regions, and also how many resources we have on our household mat. And by that, we'll be able to push our claim tokens higher and higher in order at the end of the game to have more victory points. Also, every time that we will perform an attack, we'll be able to advance our warfare token up the ladder, we can say. And at the end of the game, the higher the position, it means that you will have more victory points. Also in this stage, we'll have some income. So as you can see over here, we're going to have some columns. And if in one column, for example, we have all the resources, then we're going to receive a coin for each completed column. Also for every token that we didn't move from the zero level, let's say it like that, we're going to have another coin. And we'll a little bit reset the board in terms of resources. Also in this phase, we'll be able to take one of the deed cards that are right now open on the table in order at a later turn to complete them as a bonus action. At the third and fourth turn, we will have one more advisor each turn, and that means that we'll be able to just have more actions on the strategy board. At the end of the fourth turn, we'll just calculate all the points, and that means how many points we're going to have from the claim board, from the warfare, from the different deed cards that we had, and also from the mission that we received at the beginning of the game. The player with the most victory points will be declared as the winner and the successor of Vladimir the Great, and also we have some tiebreakers in case that we're having a tie. And that's it, that's pretty much how the game goes. So let's jump to the review part of the game, starting with the things that I pretty much liked over here. So first of all, starting as always with the setup and the rulebook. Relatively for an area control, I can see here that the setup is relatively quickly, and that's thanks to the different organizers that we're having with the game itself. So every faction, every color will just take one of the boxes, and over here, as you saw already, we're going to have the tray for the different resources and for the coins. So besides shuffling some cards and dealing, the setup is relatively quickly. I want to give a huge shout out for the person who actually wrote the rules for Rurik, because we're having here, I have to show it to you guys. This is such a thin rule book where we're having here, let me count, we have here 11 pages of rule book, and I think that the last 3 pages are for the solo mode, so not even, and also if you drop down the components and how to do the setup and everything, we're having here maybe 5 pages of rules with many examples and some photos to see how everything goes. I have to tell you that I think after, I don't know, 30-40 minutes that I passed, maybe it's too much, maybe 30-40 minutes, it's a little bit too much for these rules, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But in a relatively short time, I was able already to launch a full game, and with really a minimum amount of questions, and even for those questions you can easily find answers via BGG, for example. But the game really, from the moment that you open the box for the first time until you're having your first play, is relatively quick. Really, the person who wrote these rules is just incredible, and I already said it in a different videos, but the more games I play, the more I appreciate just a good rule book that you read it 1 or 2 times and you just understand what's going on. So it is true that in general, Rurik is not like a super complex game, not at all, but we'll talk about it soon enough also. But still, it's a new game with a relatively new mechanism that we saw over here with this worker placement auction kind of thing, which is I find it pretty great. So already we talked about it. Let me just enhance and emphasize how much I like this mechanism of auction worker placement. This is really like sort of like tricky, you know, because the stronger the advisor that you put, obviously you will be able to take the better action. But later on, or at the end, especially if you have someone with a lot of coins, they will be able to just sort of steal that place just by paying a relatively big bribe. And not only that, but the lower the number of the advisor, the faster you will play. So it's really interesting, and for me, this is the meat and bones of this game. I think that more of the action phase, I think that the strategy phase is just something incredible. Also, that brings me to the next thing, that there's almost no downtime here. So basically, just every person is taking one action. Usually the actions themselves are going to be pretty quickly. I think that the longest action that we have here is maybe the movement, or maybe the drawing cards when you're having an attack. But it's so streamlined, you know, it just goes quickly, so you find yourself always really invested in the game itself. Another thing that I really liked in this game, let me take you back to the map, is we're really used to in a area control games that every time you will do a movement and you're stepping into an enemy territory or an enemy control territory, immediately it's going to start a combat. But here it's not the case, and this is something that I actually kind of liked, because always I find myself saying like, hold on, the soldiers are relatively small, you know, if we're looking at one moment at the reality a little bit. So maybe I'm entering the territory and I'm not going to the same region like the other soldiers. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of liked it here that you can pass through and not immediately automatically trigger a combat. You can choose to do that, but it's not mandatory. And of course, in order to attack, you'll need to use here actually a different action. So when you're performing the movement, it's not going to happen immediately. And this is, for me, a very positive point. Also, because there's not a lot of downtime here and the actions are relatively simple, the game for an area control goes pretty quickly. So there's no here analysis paralysis too much or something like that. And I think that over here on the box it says 30 minutes per player. It sounds really reasonable for me. In my player counts, I played it at 2 and 3 players. It was completely like that. Maybe for new players it will take a little bit more, but I think that even 25 minutes, 30 minutes tops for a player that already knows the game and understands the action, this is fairly good. And for me, for an area control game, I think that is relatively quick, not like too quick. You still have a good experience from this game, but it's not something that is going to last too long. So this is another positive point for me. Also, another positive point in this game is the lack of luck that we're having over here with the combat. So not completely, but a little bit. I know that for me, and maybe for other players also, depends which kind of player you are, we prefer the like more deterministic kind of like combat. So I attacked you with this, you're going to have that. Maybe we have some cards to mitigate or to enhance something. But generally, there's no like dice throwing here. There is no luck aspect over here. And to me, it's something, it's pretty positive. The little bit of luck that we have here is just when you're trying to see how many casualties you have. So you're going to draw some cards. But also over here, if it was like a simple attack, you're going to draw only one card. And then if you are not ruling that territory, you'll draw another one. And then if the enemy has like a stronghold, you have another one. So even with a luck sort of thing, it does make sense, this system. Now, and maybe this is a good transition, we're going to talk about a little bit less positive things that we have in this game. So if we're already talking about combat here feels a little bit flat. So it means that I attacked you, then for sure you're going to lose one soldier, and now I'm going to see if I have casualties. Even if on the map, and let me show you again, even if on the map, for example, I'm going to have here, I don't know, 4 units, you know, I have the 3 soldiers and the leader, and still with the blue player decides to attack the yellow player, then in any case, doesn't matter what, the yellow player is going to lose one of his soldiers. So for me, it feels sometimes a little bit weird. I mean, there must be some sort of bonus for the defender, like if we have in big numbers, or at least some minuses for the attacker if again he's really outnumbered or something like that. So that to me felt a little bit weird, but not something that is like a deal breaker or something like that. At some point, this is the game and it's fine. If we're already talking about combat, then we have here the rebels that for me feel like they're a little bit just targets, you know, because you're not going to check for casualties when you're attacking the rebels, and also they're not going to attack you. So they're really just there when you're trying to count for the majority, you know, to see if you're actually ruling an area. And to me, it feels that it's a little bit too bad, because you're not going to spawn more rebels on the board at some point. So I think if I need to compare it a little bit, maybe to the game Dark Ages, I liked there more the way that I'm not so sure how they call their barbarians maybe, or something like that. I liked more the mechanism over there. So for me, this is a little bit of a miss in this game, because the rebels, besides like giving you a few resources at the beginning of the game, they disappear from the map rather quickly. Another thing that was a little bit amiss for me in this game is that there is no resource management over here. Now, I'm not saying that in every game you need to have a resource management, but here it felt like when I first set up the game and I thought, oh, okay, there's some resources, probably I will need this and that in order to do some things, and basically not so much. I mean, you do use some resources in order to complete these columns on your household mat, and maybe to take some different bonus actions when we're converting goods to actions, but that's pretty much about it. And it feels to me, again, that it's not like it's mandatory to have in every game like resource management, but it was really clear for me, at least from what I thought, that there will be resource management here, especially because we're having also the build option. So I'm thinking it's a little bit too bad maybe that in order to build different buildings we don't need to spend some resources, because the resources are there, and then maybe you would like to have more control on different regions because they're providing you more resources that you need to build buildings. Or for example, like we have in Northgard Uncharted Lands, that if you're spending some food tokens, for example, it's going to give you some bonus for the combat. I don't know, I'm not trying to change here the game, I just feel that if we already have resource here, then it's a little bit too bad that we're not using them a little bit more, and with that taking the game into a little bit of a deeper level. Now the last 2 points that I would like to present to you, I'm not so sure if to put them in like the good column or the like in the pros or the cons, but I'll just lay down for you guys. So for me, the asymmetrical aspect of the game is just the leader specific ability that we're having, but besides that everything is like completely the same. I don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe historical wise it's like a good decision because basically all of these leaders come from the same region, so maybe it wouldn't make so much sense to do like completely asymmetrical game with completely different powers or abilities. So maybe it's good or bad, I'm really not so sure in which column to put it, but the game as is pretty sweet. So it feels that we're all pretty much equal, but every leader has like that specific ability that you need to take into account, and sometimes those abilities can be pretty strong in specific situations. So it's something that you need to pay attention not only to your special power, but also to the enemy special power. And the last point that we have here is for the area control thing, that we have here not a lot of space on the map. So I think that really from the first moment of the game, when we're starting the first turn, we're already at each other's throats, which again, I'm not so sure if it's good or bad. Me personally, as a player that likes to take a little bit more time before like jumping into the hardcore mode of like killing each other's in the game, I would prefer to have like a little bit more space, so that maybe means to have every region here to be divided to more regions inside. I understand that it might make the game go a little bit slower, but this is just a personal preference. So if you like faster games and immediately jump into action, this is going to be perfect for you. It's not something that completely destroyed the game for me, of course, not very far from that, but this is just my own preference to have a little bit more space and to have at least half a turn or a turn just to like, all right, I'm diving into it, so let me see what's going on over here. So just to conclude everything, Rurik is a very interesting game with a very cool worker placement option mechanic. It's definitely something that is going to stay in my collection with great pleasure. I even want to explore more the solo mode and the expansion that it has. So if this is something that is interesting for you guys, I would be more than happy if you just comment on the video or write to me. Let me know that this is something you would like to see, and I'll be more than happy, as always, to produce another video for you guys. If you've been watching so far, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you saw something new, if you like what you saw, please let me know by liking, by commenting on the video, and of course, subscribing. It will mean the world for me. When we're reaching the next milestone of 500 subscribers, I'm going to have a super sweet free giveaway for you. Thank you for watching. Slava Ukraini, and see you next time.